My name is Travis, and I am 38 years old. After 15 years of what I thought was a happy marriage to Miranda, my world shattered when I returned early from my military deployment. I opened our garage door to find a luxury Mercedes belonging to my wife's boss. In a blind rage, I tossed metal bolts into his engine, grabbed my Magnum from the safe, and headed upstairs. Then my 16-year-old daughter Jessica blocked my path with words that changed everything. "Don't expose them now. I have a better plan to ruin this bastard's life." Before I tell you how my daughter and I executed the perfect revenge plan, drop a comment about where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. I enlisted in the Army right after high school, eventually working my way into Special Forces. The military became my identity, my purpose. I was good at it too, earning decorations for valor in combat zones across the Middle East. My unit brothers often joked that I was married to the Army, and they weren't entirely wrong. That all changed when I met Miranda. She was waiting tables at a diner near Fort Bragg, working her way through community college. I still remember how she looked that first night, chestnut hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, warm brown eyes that crinkled when she laughed at my awkward attempt to ask for her number. Miranda was different from the women I usually met around base. She had ambition, dreams beyond our small military town. Our romance moved quickly, maybe too quickly looking back. Within 6 months, we were standing in front of a justice of the peace, my buddy Mason as my best man, her friend Paige as maid of honor. I was 23, she was 22, and we thought we knew everything about love and commitment. When Jessica was born a year later, my entire universe shifted. The first time I held my daughter, this tiny perfect human with my chin and Miranda's eyes, I understood what it meant to love someone completely. Jessica became my anchor, my reason for coming home safely from every deployment. Those early years were good. Miranda finished her business degree while I sent most of my paycheck home. She was smart, capable, and when Jessica started school, Miranda landed an entry-level position at Mitchell Enterprises, a defense contractor with offices near our home. Her boss, Robert Mitchell, saw her potential and promoted her from administrative assistant to executive assistant within 2 years. My military career advanced too. More specialized training meant more dangerous deployments to places I couldn't tell my family about. I missed birthdays, school plays, anniversaries. During one 3-year stretch, I was home for a total of 7 months. Miranda never complained, at least not directly. She understood my commitment, or so I thought. I tried to make up for my absences. Every homecoming was a celebration. I brought exotic gifts from foreign countries. I took Jessica camping, taught her to fish, helped with science projects during my leaves. We maintained our bond despite the distance, writing letters when satellite calls weren't possible. Jessica kept every single one, showing me the shoebox collection whenever I returned. Our neighborhood in Virginia evolved with our growing income. The modest starter home transformed into a 4-bedroom colonial with a swimming pool Miranda insisted we needed. New furniture, luxury appliances, private school for Jessica. Miranda's salary had increased substantially as she rose to become Robert Mitchell's right hand at the company, handling his schedule, meetings, and apparently, much more. The changes in Miranda were subtle at first. Designer clothes replaced department store outfits. Girls' nights out became more frequent. Video calls during my deployment grew shorter, sometimes cancelled altogether. She claimed exhaustion from work responsibilities, but her Instagram showed cocktails with colleagues, charity galas where she stood too close to Robert in photographs. Jessica noticed it before I did. During our private calls, my daughter would mention that Mom's always on her phone smiling, or Mom came home really late again. I dismissed these comments as teenage exaggeration. My wife was building a career. I was proud of her independence. My last deployment was supposed to be for 9 months. 4 months in, our mission concluded successfully ahead of schedule. My commanding officer granted our unit 2 weeks leave before our next assignment. I decided to surprise my family with my unexpected return. I believed in our marriage despite the distance. I believed in the vows we made, in the life we built together. I believed in loyalty, honor, and commitment, values the Army had reinforced in me. Miranda and Jessica were my reasons for surviving, for pushing through the darkest moments in combat. They were my definition of home. I should have seen the signs. The credit card statements with restaurant charges for 2 on nights she claimed to be working late. The new lingerie I never saw. The sudden interest in fitness with a personal trainer scheduled 3 times weekly. The way she guarded her phone. I wanted to believe my wife was becoming her best self, not betraying me with another man. That blind faith led me to the moment that would change everything. The moment I drove home unannounced, eager to surprise the family I loved, only to discover the family I thought I had never really existed at all. The flight from Ramstein to Dulles felt endless. I couldn't stop thinking about holding Jessica and Miranda, seeing their faces when I walked through the door weeks ahead of schedule. I rented a car at the airport instead of calling for a ride, wanting to maximize the surprise. Our neighborhood looked exactly as I remembered: manicured lawns, American flags fluttering from porches, kids' bikes abandoned on driveways. It was Tuesday afternoon, around 3:30. Jessica would be home from school soon, but Miranda's car should be at her office until 6 at least. I turned onto our street, Maple Avenue, anticipation building as our white Colonial came into view. But something was wrong. A gleaming black Mercedes S-Class sat in our driveway, positioned neatly beside Miranda's Audi. I recognized that car immediately. Robert Mitchell's prized possession, the vehicle he showed off at company events, the status symbol he loved almost as much as his company. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps a work meeting, a project they needed to discuss away from the office. I parked across the street, watching our house for several minutes. No movement visible through the windows. My phone showed no messages from Miranda mentioning visitors or working from home. I approached cautiously, years of tactical training taking over. Rather than using the front entrance, I circled around back, using my key to enter through the garage. Miranda's Audi and Robert's Mercedes sat side by side in our 2-car garage. The hood of Robert's car was cool. It had been there for some time. An unnatural silence filled the house, interrupted only by occasional muffled sounds from upstairs. Our bedroom. My heart pounded in my chest, blood rushing in my ears as fury and disbelief battled for dominance. I stood frozen, mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. In that moment of clarity, I noticed Robert's expensive custom key fob sitting on the workbench. A sudden impulse took over. I grabbed a handful of metal bolts from my toolbox and quietly opened the hood of his Mercedes. With methodical precision, I dropped several bolts into the engine compartment, ensuring they would cause maximum damage when the engine started. A petty act of revenge, but satisfying nonetheless. I entered our home through the garage door, careful not to make a sound. The kitchen appeared recently used, 2 wine glasses in the sink, an empty pasta container on the counter. They'd had lunch together. In my house. While my daughter was at school. The safe in my office was hidden behind a framed photo of my unit. I dialed the combination with trembling fingers, Jessica's birthday, and removed my Magnum, a gift from my friend Garrett after a particularly dangerous mission in Kandahar. I hadn't touched it since my last leave. The weight felt reassuring in my hand as I checked the chamber. As I climbed the stairs toward our bedroom, the sounds became clearer. Miranda's voice, then a man's laugh. Robert Mitchell in my bed, with my wife. 15 years of marriage reduced to this betrayal. My vision narrowed, tunneling forward as rage consumed me. I was 3 steps from the top when Jessica appeared suddenly at the landing. Her eyes widened in shock, then relief, then fear as she noticed the gun in my hand. She must have entered through the front door while I was in the garage. "Dad," she whispered, tears immediately forming. "You're home early." I put my finger to my lips, gesturing for her to be quiet. But she shook her head fiercely, grabbing my arm with surprising strength for a 16-year-old. "Don't," she pleaded, voice barely audible. "Don't dare expose them right now." I have a better plan on how to ruin this bastard's life. The determination in her eyes stopped me cold. This wasn't new to her. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My daughter knew. She had known for some time. Jessica tugged me back downstairs, into the basement recreation room where Miranda wouldn't hear us. As soon as the door closed, she collapsed against me in a fierce hug. "It's been going on for years, Dad," she confessed, wiping angrily at her tears. "At least 3 that I know of." 3 years. My mind raced backward. 3 years ago, I was deployed to Syria. 3 years ago, Miranda had been promoted to executive assistant. 3 years ago, Jessica had just turned 13. "How long have you known?" I asked, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. 8 months, Jessica admitted. "I came home early from school once. They didn't hear me. I've been gathering evidence ever since." Evidence. My daughter had been collecting evidence while maintaining a normal relationship with her mother. She had carried this burden alone while I was thousands of miles away. "Evidence for what?" I asked, still struggling to process. Jessica's face hardened in a way no 16-year-old should. "For the divorce. For custody. For everything. Dad, there's more you need to know." She pulled out her phone, showing me a folder of photos, screenshots of text messages, even audio recordings. Times, dates, locations, all meticulously documented. My daughter had built a case with the precision of a military intelligence officer. "There's something else," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "Something I overheard them talking about last month." She couldn't look at me as she played an audio file. Miranda's voice came through clearly. "He doesn't suspect anything. He never has. Sometimes I wonder if he would even notice if Jessica wasn't his." Robert's response was immediate. "Don't start that again." We agreed not to discuss it. I felt the blood drain from my face. Not my daughter? It couldn't be possible. Jessica, who had my chin, my smile, my terrible sense of humor. Jessica, who I had held moments after her birth, who I had taught to ride a bike, who wrote me letters every week during deployments. "It might not be true," Jessica said quickly, watching my reaction. "They could have been talking about something else. But Dad, that's why we can't just confront them now. We need to be smart about this." My military training took over, pushing down the emotion, focusing on the mission. "What's your plan?" I asked. Jessica's smile was grimly determined. "We're going to take everything from them. Legally. Permanently. And they'll never see it coming." Jessica led me to her bedroom, locking the door behind us. From under her bed, she pulled a plastic storage container labeled "School Projects." Inside was the most comprehensive intelligence operation I'd ever seen outside of military planning. "I started documenting everything after I caught them in February," she explained, spreading folders across her desk. "At first, I thought it was a one-time thing, that Mom had made a mistake. Then I realized it had been happening for years." Jessica had organized her evidence chronologically. Photographs of Miranda and Robert entering hotels. Screenshots of text messages she'd managed to capture from Miranda's phone while her mother was showering. Credit card statements showing purchases that never made it home, expensive jewelry, weekend getaways disguised as business trips. "How did you get access to the financial records?" I asked, impressed despite my heartbreak. "Mom uses the same password for everything, my birthday," Jessica explained. "The joint account statements come to your email, but you have it set to auto-forward to the family account. I've been monitoring everything." She showed me evidence of Miranda using our joint funds to buy gifts for Robert. A Rolex watch for Christmas, first-class tickets to Cancun over spring break when Jessica and I were told Miranda had an emergency conference. "There's more," Jessica said hesitantly. "After I heard them talking about whether you're my real father, I started looking deeper." Jessica had become suspicious about her own paternity and began investigating. She found old emails between Miranda and Robert dating back to before my deployment to Syria. Their relationship had begun earlier than we thought, possibly as early as when Jessica was 12. I found this in Mom's personal email, Jessica said, showing me a message from 14 years ago, when Jessica was just 2. The subject line read, "Test results," and though the message was vague, it clearly referenced a negative outcome, and Robert's relief. My heart sank. They did a paternity test when you were little? Jessica nodded grimly. I think so. I can't find the actual results, but they've known for years. Dad, I think Robert might be my biological father. The room spun around me. Jessica, not my daughter? It seemed impossible. Yet as I looked at her now, I could see subtle features that weren't mine or Miranda's, the shape of her eyes, the arch of her eyebrows. It doesn't matter, Jessica said fiercely, grabbing my hand. You're my dad. You've always been my dad. Biology doesn't change that. Her loyalty broke something in me. I pulled her into a hug, letting tears fall for the first time since combat had claimed my best friend 2 tours ago. What do we do now? I asked when I could speak again. Jessica had already thought this through. First, we need to confirm it with a paternity test. If it's true, we have grounds for paternity fraud in this state. Second, we need a lawyer, a good one. Third, we need to gather more evidence without them knowing we're onto them. Her plan was impressive in its detail. I would pretend my leave was cancelled, maintaining the fiction that I was still deployed. I would stay at a hotel while we consulted with attorneys. Jessica would continue documenting Miranda's behavior, particularly any neglect or inappropriate actions. We'll need to set up cameras, I suggested, military surveillance training kicking in. Already done, Jessica replied, pointing to what looked like ordinary phone chargers plugged into various outlets in her room. Nanny cams? I have them in the living room, kitchen, and hallways. Not in their bedroom, though. I couldn't. I didn't want to see. I squeezed her shoulder. You've done amazing work, Jessica. More than you should have had to do. We spent the next hour outlining our strategy. I would leave before Miranda discovered my presence, taking copies of Jessica's evidence. We would meet the following day after she finished school. Meanwhile, I would find us a lawyer and arrange for a discreet paternity test. What about confronting them? I asked, the anger still burning beneath my strategic planning. Not yet, Jessica insisted. If we confront them now, they'll have time to hide assets, create stories, maybe even turn it around on you. Robert has connections everywhere. We need everything in place first. I had to admit the wisdom in her approach. In combat, the element of surprise was often the difference between success and failure. We would prepare silently, then strike decisively. There's one more thing, Jessica said quietly. I think Robert's wife Susan suspects something. Last month at the company picnic, I overheard her arguing with him about late nights and unexplained absences. This presented both a complication and an opportunity. If Susan Mitchell was already suspicious, she might become an ally in our case against Robert and Miranda. Let me handle that angle, I said. I know how to approach assets in sensitive situations. Jessica nodded, then suddenly tensed at the sound of movement downstairs. They're done, she whispered. You need to go now. Text me when you're safe at a hotel. I hugged my daughter one last time, overcome with pride at her strength and loyalty. I love you, Jess. We'll get through this together. I love you too, Dad, she replied firmly. And when this is over, they'll both regret ever betraying us. I slipped out through Jessica's window, down the drainage pipe like I'd done countless times on operations. As I drove away, I glanced back at our house, the home I had sacrificed so much to provide, now the staging ground for the most important mission of my life. The DNA testing facility was located in an unremarkable office building in Alexandria. I registered under a false name, paying cash for the expedited service. Jessica had provided her samples the previous day during her lunch break. The technician assured us results would be available within 48 hours. Those 2 days were the longest of my life. I took a room at the Hampton Inn using my military discount, explaining to the sympathetic desk clerk that I was waiting for housing on base. From this temporary command center, Jessica and I coordinated our next moves. My first call was to Daniel Wilson, a JAG officer I'd served with in Afghanistan who now practiced family law. I explained my situation in clinical terms, focusing on facts rather than emotions. Daniel listened without interruption, then sighed heavily. "Travis, this is complex. If what you suspect is true, you have a strong case for paternity fraud. Virginia takes that very seriously. But we need to be certain before proceeding." He recommended Catherine Reynolds, a high-profile divorce attorney known for handling cases involving military personnel. Her fees were steep, but her success rate justified the expense. "She'll protect your interests and Jessica's," Daniel assured me. "And she knows how to handle sensitive situations discreetly." While waiting for the DNA results, Jessica continued her intelligence gathering. She installed more cameras, copied documents, and recorded conversations that proved Miranda's neglect. One particularly damning video showed Miranda canceling Jessica's doctor's appointment because it conflicted with her lunch meeting with Robert. 2 days later, my phone rang with the testing facility's number. The technician's voice was professionally neutral as she delivered the news that would forever alter my understanding of my family. The results indicate a 0% probability of paternity between the submitted samples. I wasn't Jessica's biological father. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, phone still in hand long after the call ended. The room blurred around me as 16 years of memories flashed through my mind. Jessica's first steps. Teaching her to swim. The science project we stayed up all night to finish. Her face lighting up every time I returned from deployment. A text message interrupted my spiral. "Whatever they said, it doesn't change anything. You're my dad. Period. Coming to hotel after school. Love you." My daughter's unwavering loyalty steadied me. Biological or not, our bond was real. I had raised her, loved her, shaped her character. No DNA test could erase that. Catherine Reynolds agreed to meet us that afternoon. Her corner office overlooked the Potomac, the Pentagon visible in the distance. She was younger than I expected but carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to winning difficult battles. "Sergeant Baker," she greeted me. "Your friend Daniel briefed me on your situation. I'm sorry you're facing this, but you've come to the right place." Jessica presented our evidence with remarkable composure. Catherine examined each document, occasionally making notes or asking clarifying questions. When Jessica played the recording suggesting Robert's paternity, Catherine's expression hardened. "This is textbook paternity fraud," she stated. "Combined with adultery, misuse of marital funds, and the emotional impact on Jessica, we have grounds for a very strong case." She outlined our strategy: file for divorce citing adultery, pursue paternity fraud charges, and seek full custody of Jessica despite the biological revelation. The key would be proving Miranda's deliberate deception and Jessica's desire to remain with me. "What about my military status?" I asked. "I'm supposed to deploy again in 3 weeks." Catherine smiled for the first time. "Your commander owes me a favor." "I believe we can arrange for temporary reassignment to the Pentagon until this matter is resolved." A financial investigator on Catherine's team uncovered more damning evidence. Miranda had a secret account containing nearly $60,000, funded through regular transfers from Robert Mitchell. The timeline matched her promotion to executive assistant, suggesting possible employment improprieties beyond their affair. Jessica, meanwhile, had been documenting Miranda's increasing absences. Nights when Miranda claimed to be working late but was actually at Robert's penthouse. Weekends when Jessica was left alone while Miranda and Robert took day trips to Virginia Beach. School events Miranda missed despite promising to attend. "She's barely been a mother for years," Jessica explained, showing us her meticulous calendar. "Dad was deployed, but he still called every week, sent letters, remembered my competitions. She lives in the same house and can't be bothered to show up." Catherine assured us this pattern of neglect would strongly influence custody proceedings. "The court considers stability and emotional bonds, not just biology." Jessica is 16, articulate, and clear about her preferences. Her testimony will be powerful. Our final strategic element came unexpectedly. Susan Mitchell, Robert's wife of 25 years, contacted me through Daniel after discovering my name on a visitor log at Catherine's office building. We met at a quiet coffee shop in Arlington. Susan was elegant, composed, but the strain of her situation showed in the fine lines around her eyes. "I've known about Robert's affairs for years," she admitted. "But I always believed they were meaningless flings. Learning about Miranda, about a child, it changes everything." Susan had hired her own investigator months earlier. She had evidence of Robert's infidelities dating back decades, including financial records, hotel receipts, and photographs. She offered to share everything in exchange for keeping her updated on our case. "I want him ruined," she said calmly, stirring her untouched tea. "Professionally, financially, socially ruined." Our alliance was cemented that afternoon. Susan would file for divorce simultaneously with my petition, creating a two-front legal battle that would overwhelm Robert's resources and attention. Catherine's team prepared extensive documentation for court filing. The strategy was to submit everything simultaneously: divorce petition, paternity fraud claim, custody request, and financial disclosures, timed to coincide with Mitchell Enterprises' quarterly board meeting. "Element of surprise," Jessica noted with grim satisfaction during our final planning session. "Just like you taught me, Dad." The night before filing, Jessica and I talked late into the evening at my hotel room. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, we allowed ourselves to imagine life after the legal battle. "What happens when you have to deploy again?" Jessica asked, voicing the concern that had been weighing on both of us. "I'm requesting a stateside assignment," I told her. "After 16 years of service, I've earned it. Besides, there are plenty of training positions that would keep us together." Jessica leaned her head against my shoulder. "I'm sorry about the DNA test," she whispered. I turned to face her directly. "Listen to me. Biology is just science. Family is something deeper. You are my daughter in every way that matters. Nothing will ever change that." Her smile was worth every moment of pain we'd endured. "We're going to win this, aren't we?" I nodded with the confidence of a soldier who had survived impossible missions. "They never saw us coming." Catherine Reynolds believed in making statements. That's why she chose to have Miranda serve with divorce papers during an executive lunch meeting at Le Diplomate, an upscale restaurant frequented by Washington power players. The process server, a former Marine who owed me a favor, approached their table with professional courtesy, placing the envelope beside Miranda's wine glass. "Miranda Baker?" he confirmed. "You've been served." I wasn't present, but Jessica had positioned herself at a nearby table with a school friend, ostensibly studying for finals. She described the scene in vivid detail later: how Miranda's face strained of color as she scanned the documents, how Robert reached for the papers only to be served with his own from Susan's attorney seconds later. "Mom tried calling you immediately," Jessica reported. "When you didn't answer, she called me, demanding to know where you were. I played dumb, said I thought you were still deployed." Miranda's panic escalated when she returned home to find Jessica packing a suitcase. "What are you doing?" Miranda had demanded. Jessica's response was beautifully rehearsed. "Dad's attorney said I should stay with Aunt Helen until the emergency custody hearing tomorrow. Something about a safe environment free from parental conflict." Helen was my sister, a pediatric nurse who lived 30 minutes away. She had agreed to our plan immediately, outraged by Miranda's betrayal. Jessica would stay with her during critical phases of the proceedings, providing another stable adult figure in the custody evaluation. The initial hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. the following morning. Judge Carolyn Peterson had a reputation for efficiency and zero tolerance for deception. Miranda arrived with Elliot Barnes, a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics and high fees. Robert was conspicuously absent, having secured separate representation for the paternity matter. I sat beside Catherine at the plaintiff's table, posture military straight, dress uniform pressed to perfection. Jessica waited outside with the victim advocate, prepared to testify if necessary. Judge Peterson reviewed our filings with methodical attention, occasionally glancing up to study Miranda's increasingly distressed expression. "Mrs. Baker," she finally said, "these are serious allegations. Do you understand what your husband is claiming?" Miranda's attorney leaned forward. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges marital difficulties but categorically denies paternity fraud. These accusations are clearly retaliatory from a military husband with anger management issues and extended absences." Catherine remained perfectly calm. "Your Honor, we have DNA confirmation, audio recordings, and financial evidence supporting all claims. Additionally, we've documented a pattern of maternal neglect that directly impacts custody considerations." Judge Peterson's expression revealed nothing. "I'll review the evidence in chambers. For now, I'm issuing a temporary order. The minor child will remain with her paternal aunt, with daily visitation rights for both parents, separately scheduled. Financial accounts are frozen pending further investigation." Outside the courtroom, Miranda attempted to approach me. "Travis, please," she begged, tears streaking her expensive makeup. "We need to talk about this privately. There's so much you don't understand." Catherine stepped smoothly between us. "All communication through counsel, Mrs. Baker. My client has nothing to say to you outside court." The financial disclosure hearing 3 days later revealed the extent of Miranda's deception. Catherine's forensic accountant presented evidence of the secret account, questionable transfers, and misappropriated joint funds. Mrs. Baker withdrew approximately $120,000 from joint accounts over 3 years. The accountant testified. Expenditures include jewelry, travel, and a down payment on a condominium in Georgetown under an LLC linked to Robert Mitchell. Miranda's counterargument focused on my military service. My client managed family finances during her husband's extended absences, her attorney argued. Sergeant Baker was deployed for 36 of the past 60 months, effectively abandoning financial responsibilities. Judge Peterson's expression tightened. "Counsel, I suggest you reconsider characterizing military service as abandonment in my courtroom." The custody evaluation brought Jessica into the proceedings. She testified with remarkable poise, describing her relationship with me despite deployments versus Miranda's increasing emotional distance. "My dad called every week from war zones," she explained. "He helped me with algebra over satellite phone. He remembered every competition, every award, even when he was thousands of miles away. My mother lives in our house and forgot my 16th birthday because she was at a hotel with Mr. Mitchell." Miranda's attorney attempted to suggest Jessica was being manipulated. "Isn't it possible your father has influenced your perspective? Perhaps encouraged negative feelings toward your mother?" Jessica's response was measured but firm. "My father taught me to form my own opinions based on evidence. The evidence is that he's been my parent even from Afghanistan, while my mother checked out when a better opportunity came along." Robert Mitchell finally appeared during the paternity fraud hearing. His attorney, a corporate specialist clearly uncomfortable with family court, argued that paternity was Miranda's responsibility. Mr. Mitchell had no knowledge of the child's paternity until recently. He claimed any fraud was perpetrated by Mrs. Baker alone. Catherine demolished this defense with surgical precision, presenting emails between Robert and Miranda discussing test results from 14 years ago. The email's metadata confirmed its authenticity despite Robert's claims it was fabricated. The corporate fallout began simultaneously. Susan's divorce filing included a letter to the Mitchell Enterprises board detailing Robert's misuse of company resources to conduct his affair. Company cars for rendezvous, business trips that were actually vacations, an executive assistant hired and promoted based on personal relationship rather than qualification. The board placed Robert on administrative leave pending investigation. Miranda was terminated immediately for ethics violations. Their carefully constructed professional lives began unraveling alongside their personal deceptions. Miranda made increasingly desperate attempts to contact me outside court. She left voicemails, sent emails, even appeared at Helen's house demanding to see Jessica beyond scheduled visitation hours. Each violation was documented and added to our case file. "She's scared," Catherine observed after a particularly heated court session. "The reality of consequences is setting in." Jessica moved into my apartment temporarily after Judge Peterson granted an extended custody evaluation. Our evenings were spent rebuilding our relationship, processing betrayal, and planning for a future neither of us had anticipated. "Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" Jessica asked one night as we assembled furniture for her room. I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about not letting anger control our future. I'm not there yet, but someday, maybe. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. I'm not ready either. But I'm glad we have each other. That simple truth became our foundation as we navigated the complex legal battle ahead. Whatever biology might say, we were father and daughter, united against those who had betrayed us both. The formal trial began 6 weeks after initial filing. Public interest had grown as details leaked to local media: a decorated soldier, corporate executives, paternity fraud. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when we arrived. Catherine had prepared me for this. Focus straight ahead. No comments. Let the court speak through its rulings. Miranda's family occupied one section of the gallery. Her parents, who had always treated me with cool politeness, now watched with open hostility. Her sister Natalie, once my ally in family gatherings, sat rigid beside them. The family had closed ranks around Miranda despite the evidence. My support came from unexpected quarters. 5 members of my former unit arrived in dress uniforms, creating a formidable presence in the gallery. Helen sat with Jessica when she wasn't testifying. Even my commanding officer appeared briefly, a silent statement of military solidarity. Miranda's testimony portrayed me as emotionally distant, consumed by military service to the detriment of our marriage. Travis was physically absent for most of our marriage, she claimed. When he was home, he was withdrawn, sometimes aggressive. I was essentially a single parent. Catherine's cross-examination was methodical. Mrs. Baker, did your husband call regularly during deployments? When he could, Miranda admitted. Did he send his entire housing allowance home to support you and Jessica? Yes, but... Did he attend Jessica's events when not deployed? Usually. Did you inform him that Jessica might not be his biological child at any point during your 16-year marriage? Miranda's hesitation was damning. I wasn't certain. But you became certain 14 years ago after genetic testing, correct? Catherine presented the email evidence again. You and Mr. Mitchell discussed negative results when Jessica was 2 years old. What were those results, Mrs. Baker? The court fell silent as Miranda struggled to respond. It was a paternity test. She finally admitted. Robert wanted confirmation. Catherine's voice remained perfectly controlled. So you knew Sergeant Baker was raising a child who wasn't biologically his, while he was deployed serving his country, and you chose to maintain that deception for 14 years? Miranda's defense crumbled visibly. I loved Travis. I didn't want to lose him. Robert Mitchell's testimony attempted to distance himself from responsibility. He claimed minimal involvement in Jessica's life, insisted the affair with Miranda was recent rather than long-term, and denied knowledge of paternity until the current proceedings. Susan Mitchell's testimony destroyed these claims. She presented photographs of Robert with Miranda at a resort in Barbados 12 years earlier, during a conference he supposedly attended alone. She produced credit card statements showing gifts purchased for Miranda dating back a decade. Most damaging was an email from Robert to his private attorney from 8 years ago, discussing potential financial responsibility for the child if the marriage ended. Financial experts detailed the extent of Miranda and Robert's financial entanglement. Beyond the secret account, they had invested jointly in property using shell companies. Miranda had diverted household funds to these investments while I was deployed, creating detailed explanations for expenditures that never actually occurred. The school counselor Jessica had confided in testified about academic impact. Jessica's grades declined significantly about 8 months ago, she explained. When we discussed potential causes, she revealed she had discovered her mother's infidelity, but felt unable to tell her father while he was in a combat zone. The counselor's documentation of Jessica's distress, including anxiety symptoms and insomnia, strengthened our custody case considerably. Miranda's testimony grew increasingly desperate as evidence mounted. She attempted a new strategy, claiming I had been physically abusive during leaves, creating a hostile environment she sought escape from. He would have violent episodes, she testified tearfully. Nightmares where he'd wake up screaming, once breaking a lamp beside our bed. I was afraid for my safety and Jessica's. This unexpected allegation stunned the courtroom. PTSD among combat veterans was well documented, making her claims potentially credible despite their sudden appearance. Catherine had anticipated this possibility. Your Honor, we request permission to present video evidence directly contradicting this testimony. Judge Peterson granted the request. The courtroom watched footage from Jessica's security cameras showing Miranda and Robert discussing strategy in our kitchen 2 nights earlier. Just say he was violent, Robert advised on screen. They always believe that about these military types. PTSD and all that. Nobody will question it. Miranda's face crumpled as her fabrication was exposed. Her attorney requested a brief recess, returning to withdraw the allegations formally. Jessica's final testimony provided the emotional core of our case. She presented her journal documenting Miranda's neglect, missed parent-teacher conferences, forgotten medical appointments, evenings left alone while Miranda was with Robert. I'm 16, she concluded, looking directly at Judge Peterson. In less than 2 years, I'll be legally an adult. But right now, I need stability. I need the parent who's always been there for me, biology notwithstanding. That's my dad. Judge Peterson ordered a 2-day recess to review all evidence before issuing her ruling. Those 48 hours were excruciating. Jessica and I distracted ourselves with hiking in Great Falls Park, trying to find moments of normalcy amid the chaos. What if we lose? Jessica asked as we watched the powerful currents below. We've already won what matters, I told her. We have the truth. We have each other. The rest is just details. She smiled, the weight momentarily lifting from her young shoulders. When did you get so wise, old man? Probably around the time my teenager started outsmarting corporate executives and gathering court evidence, I replied, throwing an arm around her shoulders. When we returned to court, the gallery was packed. Judge Peterson entered with an expression that revealed nothing of her decision. This court has rarely encountered a case with such clear evidence of deliberate, prolonged deception, she began. The facts are not in dispute. Miranda Baker engaged in a long-term extramarital relationship. She knowingly allowed Travis Baker to raise a child who was not biologically his without disclosure. She diverted marital assets to support this deception. These actions constitute fraud by any reasonable definition. Miranda stared at the table before her, shoulders slumped in defeat. As to custody, Judge Peterson continued, this court finds that despite lack of biological connection, Travis Baker has been Jessica's psychological parent throughout her life. The stability of this relationship, combined with Jessica's clearly stated preference and Miranda Baker's documented pattern of prioritizing her relationship with Robert Mitchell over parental responsibilities, leads this court to award full legal and physical custody to Travis Baker. The judge's gavel fell with finality. This ruling is effective immediately. The legal victory was comprehensive. Judge Peterson's final ruling granted me full custody of Jessica, with Miranda allowed supervised visitation twice monthly until Jessica turned 18. The paternity fraud judgment ordered Miranda and Robert to pay substantial damages, covering both emotional distress and financial compensation for 16 years of child support and expenses. Our home was awarded to me in the settlement, but the memories it contained were too painful for either Jessica or me. We sold it within a month, purchasing a smaller house near Helen in a quiet neighborhood with good schools. The fresh start felt necessary for our healing. Miranda's professional collapse mirrored her personal one. Terminated from Mitchell Enterprises for ethics violations, she found herself unemployable in the corporate world where rumors of the scandal had spread. Robert fared no better. Susan's divorce settlement claimed 60% of his assets, while the board of directors forced his resignation amid concerns about judgment and character. 3 weeks after the final ruling, Miranda appeared at our new home unannounced. She looked diminished somehow, designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, makeup minimal, the polished executive persona stripped away. "Can we talk?" she asked when I answered the door. "Please, Travis." 5 minutes. Jessica was at volleyball practice, so I reluctantly invited her in, maintaining a careful emotional distance. "I know sorry doesn't begin to cover it," Miranda began, perching awkwardly on the edge of a chair. "But I am sorry. Deeply, completely sorry." "Why?" I asked simply. "Not why you're sorry now. Why you did it for 16 years. Miranda stared at her hands. "It started as a mistake. One night when you were deployed. Then it became an escape, then a habit, then my normal." Robert represented everything I thought I wanted: success, status, excitement. I convinced myself I deserved more than waiting for a husband who was always leaving. And Jessica? Her eyes filled with tears. By the time I realized I was pregnant, we were already having problems. I truly believed she was yours until she was too. When Robert insisted on the test, I was terrified of losing you, of being a single mother. So I buried the truth. You let me raise another man's child without giving me the choice to decide if I could accept that. You loved her so much, Miranda whispered. From the moment she was born. I couldn't bear to break that bond. Then years passed, and the lie seemed impossible to undo. I considered her words carefully. I did love her. I still do. She's my daughter in every way that matters. That's the irony of all this, Miranda. If you told me the truth back then, we might have found a way forward together. The deception was worse than the biology. Miranda nodded, wiping tears. I want to try to repair my relationship with Jessica. If she'll let me. If you'll allow it. That's Jessica's decision, I replied firmly. She's old enough to choose what role you play in her life going forward. I won't interfere either way. After Miranda left, I sat alone in our new living room, reflecting on the strange path that had led us here. The betrayal still hurt, but its power was diminishing daily. Jessica and I were building something new from the wreckage of what we'd lost. My military career shifted as I'd hoped. After 16 years of deployments, I secured a training position at Quantico, teaching special operations tactics to new recruits. The regular hours and stability were exactly what Jessica and I needed. Jessica's resilience amazed me daily. She transferred schools, joined the volleyball team, maintained her excellent grades despite the emotional turmoil. She began therapy with a counselor specializing in family trauma, gradually processing the complex emotions toward both Miranda and Robert. "Do you think he'll ever try to have a relationship with me?" she asked one evening, referring to Robert. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "That's his loss if he doesn't. But remember, fatherhood is about showing up, about choices made daily. He may share your DNA, but he never chose to be your father. You did," she said simply. "Every day, even from thousands of miles away." 6 months after the court case, I met Claire, a military psychologist who worked with returning veterans. Our relationship developed slowly, both of us carrying past wounds that needed respect and space. Jessica approved wholeheartedly, often finding excuses to leave us alone together. "She laughs at your terrible jokes," Jessica observed after Claire's third dinner at our home. "She's either genuinely funny or slightly deaf. Either way, you should keep her." A year after discovering Miranda's betrayal, we had created a new normal. Our home became a gathering place for friends, filled with laughter that had once seemed impossible. Jessica was researching colleges, leaning toward Georgetown's International Relations program. I was considering retirement from active duty to start a security consulting business. Miranda maintained limited contact with Jessica, their relationship fragile but slowly rebuilding on more honest terms. Robert remained absent, having moved to Chicago after the divorce, seemingly uninterested in exploring any connection with his biological daughter. On the anniversary of the court decision, Jessica and I hiked to the summit of Old Rag Mountain, a tradition we'd started years earlier during my leaves. "I've been thinking," she said as we reached the top, overlooking the Virginia landscape spread below us. "Everything that happened was terrible. The lies, the betrayal, all of it. But in a weird way, it made us stronger. More honest with each other." I considered her words. Sometimes it takes losing what you thought you had to discover what truly matters. "And what matters is this," she said, gesturing between us. "Family. The real kind. The kind you build through showing up, through choices, through love that doesn't depend on biology or obligation." Her wisdom, earned through pain no teenager should experience, filled me with profound pride. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, father and daughter by choice rather than genetics. As we watched the sunset from that mountaintop, I realized the revenge we'd sought through legal means had ultimately been less important than the redemption we'd found in rebuilding our lives. The true victory wasn't in the courtroom but in this moment, two people who chose each other as family despite everything that might have torn them apart. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What helped you move forward? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and redemption. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the one we're born into. Thank you for listening, and may you find strength if you're facing your own battles today.